Okay, so we all know that feeling, right? That urge to ask why.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Especially when we were kids.
Yeah.
It's just why about everything, you know? The sky, the dog, why water goes down the drain.
Absolutely. That endless stream. It can be exhausting for parents. I get it. But it's so fundamental.
Yeah, totally. But then sometimes you get that answer, the one that just shuts it all down.
The classic. The conversation stopper.
I don't know, it just is. Ugh, it just kills the whole vibe, doesn't it?
It really does. It's like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
And that phrase, it just is, well, it represents this instant shutdown of what's arguably our most basic cognitive instinct.
How so?
Well, it suggests knowledge is fixed, finite.
Right. Certain. Which is basically the exact opposite of what drives innovation.
Right, because innovation needs questions, not dead ends.
Exactly. We are fundamentally programmed to be primal explorers even. But somewhere along the way, maybe between childhood stuff and, like, professional pressures, that
Right.
drive often gets muffled or even lost. That tension, the sort of natural drive versus the things that dampen it. That's really what we're digging into today, isn't it?
That's the core of it, yes.
So our mission for this deep dive, using the sources you provided, is to really unpack curiosity. We want to look at what drives it intrinsically, figure out the barriers that stifle it, especially in adults, and most importantly, pull out concrete strategies, things we can actually use to harness curiosity, make it an engine for innovation, both personally and professionally.
And to really get there, to cultivate curiosity effectively, we have to start with the foundation, which is mindset.
Okay.
The sources bring up this really crucial concept, the growth mindset.
Ah, yes. I've heard about this. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. It's this belief, this liberating idea that your basic abilities, your intelligence, even your core qualities, they aren't set in stone.
They're not fixed.
Exactly. They're malleable. You can cultivate them, expand them through focused effort, using the right strategies, and importantly, being open to help from others.
I find that so motivating because it completely reframes failure, doesn't it? It's not like a judgment on who you are.
Precisely. Failure becomes data. It's feedback in a learning process, not a final verdict.
Which is the complete opposite of the fixed mindset.
Right. The fixed mindset, that one's really restrictive. If you believe your intelligence or talent is just this static thing you have a certain amount of, then you become terrified of challenges. Because any potential stumble, any mistake, feels like it risks exposing some kind of fundamental flaw.
So you play it safe.
You stick to the easy stuff, the familiar ground. You avoid anything that might make you look less than perfect.
And that fixed approach, well, in today's world, that sounds pretty dangerous.
It's lethal, honestly. Think about the massive disruption we're seeing. AI, blockchain, you name it. Not to mention economic crises, health crises.
Constant change.
Constant uncertainty. In that environment, the ability to continuously learn and adapt, which is fueled by curiosity, becomes a kind of enterprise superpower.
It's not just a nice to have anymore.
Not at all. The sources are clear on this. Curiosity isn't some soft skill on the sidelines. It's deeply involved before you even get to profitable innovation. It's proving way more important for how companies and individuals perform than we used to think.
So it's like the entry ticket for navigating all this complexity.
Mandatory prerequisite, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, so if it's that vital, let's rewind. Let's go back to the basics. Why do we even have this urge, this primal need to ask why? It feels deeper than just learned behavior.
Because it is deeper. It's ancient programming.
Yeah.
Ingrained in us through evolutionary necessity.
Survival, basically.
Yes. The sources actually frame innovation itself as a kind of social appetite. And it's enforced by two things, curiosity and what they call the Eureka pleasure.
Eureka pleasure. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, think about our early ancestors. Survival wasn't guaranteed, obviously. It depended heavily on their ability to cautiously explore new, potentially dangerous environments.
Like stepping into a dense jungle, maybe, or checking out a new water source.
Exactly. They were, as the sources put it, literally coaxed by curiosity to take calculated risks, to find food, water, shelter, the essentials.
Okay, so curiosity drives the initial search, that push into the unknown jungle. But what about when they actually found something? That aha moment.
That's the Eureka pleasure kicking in. It's a really powerful neurological reward system. It's designed to reinforce discovery.
So when scattered observations suddenly click together, like figuring out you can use a long stick to knock down fruit.
Perfect example. That rush of positive feeling, that Eureka moment, serves two critical functions. First, for the individual, it basically confirms, hey, this is important, this could help you survive.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second function, you mentioned innovation is a social appetite.
Right. Crucially, that pleasure doesn't just encourage self-preservation, it compels you to share the discovery.
Ah, because we're social animals.
Exactly. The sheer joy of figuring something out makes the innovator want to tell the group, hey everyone, look what I found, look what we can do.
So curiosity drives the search. The pleasure rewards the finding.
And sharing spreads the knowledge, strengthening the whole group's chances. It's this self-reinforcing loop that builds collective intelligence, a really elegant biosocial system.
It is elegant, and you see echoes of it so clearly in kids, right? The sources had that anecdote, the one about the 3-year-old on the airport shuttle.
Oh yes, the exhausted parent
Yeah,
scenario.
been there.
Right. And the kid just keeps asking, with complete earnestness, why is this a bus?
And the poor mother, totally drained, defaults to the curiosity killer. I don't know, just is.
But the question itself, even though it's simple, it forces the adult, even an exhausted one, to actually think, to challenge assumptions. Why do we call this a bus? How is it different from a car?
It pushes boundaries, makes you define things. It shows how powerful that innate drive is, even in a small child asking a seemingly basic question.
It really does. But the sources also warn that this drive, as strong as it is, can be unintentionally shut down by parents, by educators, the very people who are supposed to nurture it. Yeah, often with good intentions, ironically, trying to protect kids from, say, frustration or failure, or even physical risk. So they shut down the exploration.
With phrases like,
Oh, you don't need to know that, or that's not important right now, or just avoiding the question. When kids hear that, they learn pretty quickly that their questions aren't welcome, or maybe even that asking is somehow wrong.
and they lose the chance to explore, to test things out, and crucially, to make mistakes in a safe space.
Exactly. Instead of shielding them from those little inquiry challenges, we should be doing the opposite, reframing our responses.
So when a kid asks a tough question,
The best response is something like, wow, that's a fantastic question. I'm not sure I know. How could we find out together? That empowers them, makes them partners in discovery.
that proactive approach, it reminds me of the historical example the sources use, Leonardo da Vinci.
Ah, Da Vinci, yes.
Yeah.
He's like the ultimate poster child for cross-disciplinary curiosity, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Art, science, engineering, anatomy. He was deep into all of it.
And not just dabbling. He achieved mastery across these incredibly diverse fields. But if you really look at the evidence, like his journals, what stands out isn't just the breadth, it's the process.
The process, how so?
Well, think about the output. He produced maybe, what, 20 completed paintings? Masterpieces, obviously.
Right, world famous.
But his journals contain hundreds and hundreds of incredibly detailed sketches, notes, observations.
So the bulk of his actual work wasn't the final product, but the investigation leading to it.
Precisely. His core drive, it seems, wasn't just to finish a painting for applause. It was this intrinsic desire to produce quality work that was rooted in deep, verifiable understanding.
So the drawing, the sketching, it was more than just art.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He used drawing and sketching explicitly as a tool, a means to an end, a way to better understand how muscles work, how water flowed, how buildings stood up.
So it was about understanding the big picture.
Exactly. The process of observing, recording, sketching. That's how he synthesized incredibly complex information. His curiosity was relentlessly focused on the method of discovery itself, not just the glory of the final invention or artwork.
And those notebooks became this incredible legacy of inquiry, inspiring people long after him.
Absolutely. It really shows that deep curiosity is fundamentally about the journey, the process, not just reaching a destination.
Okay, so that's the why and the historical precedent. Let's dig into the mechanism a bit more. Researchers talk about explanation-seeking curiosity. What actually triggers that? What gets the ball rolling?
Well, the sources point to three main triggers. First is surprise.
Okay, like when something happens that you totally didn't expect.
Exactly. It violates your expectations and makes you go, huh, why did that happen? The second trigger is novelty.
Encountering something completely new, unfamiliar.
Right. Something you have no existing mental model for. And the third, which is really key, is the information gap.
The information gap, that sounds a bit technical. What does that actually feel like for someone learning?
It's defined technically as a lack of confidence in knowing the answer. But subjectively, it feels like, well, like a mental itch you need to scratch.
Okay.
It's this cognitive state where you register a hole in your knowledge. It's not necessarily painful, but it's a kind of mild, nagging discomfort, a felt sense that something is missing, that you need to know the answer to resolve it.
So that gap creates the motivation, and finding the answer provides the relief, the pleasure.
Exactly. The gap fuels the search, the resolution satisfies the itch.
And the sources mention how complex the questions arising from this gap can be. They talked about researchers using things like ConceptNet to build why questions.
Yeah, that's fascinating research. They use these large semantic networks, which map relationships between concepts, to actually construct complex questions, like the example given, why are lizards found in gardens?
Right.
It shows that the questions sparked by curiosity aren't always simple. They often require connecting disparate pieces of information.
And this leads to a really interesting characteristic of curiosity mentioned in the sources. It's fecundity, it's fruitfulness.
Yes, fecundity. It's a great word for it. Curiosity is inherently fertile. It doesn't just lead to a single answer. It tends to branch out, leading to other questions, deeper inquiry, even other virtues.
How so?
Well, answering that question about lizards in gardens, that might spark curiosity about soil biology, or local microclimates, or predator-prey relationships, or even urban planning effects on ecosystems. One answered question generates 10 more. It's a chain reaction.
That branching out, it seems like it applies beyond just intellectual stuff, too. The sources made a connection to our relationships.
They did, and it's a really insightful connection. Linguistically, the word curiosity has roots in the Latin curare,
Which means
to take care of or to cure. This connection highlights the social virtue of curiosity. Think about your closest relationships, partners, family, not friendships.
okay.
We absolutely expect them to be curious about us, right? About our inner lives, our fears, our hopes, our struggles, our dreams.
Yeah, definitely. If they never ask, it feels off, like they don't care.
Exactly. When a friend genuinely asks why you made a difficult choice or how you're feeling about a challenge, they're not just gathering data, they're actively demonstrating care and concern.
They're trying to understand your world.
Precisely. That shared curiosity, that effort to understand, deepens the bond, builds trust. And when it's missing, it can feel like a form of emotional neglect. It signals a lack of care. So, in that sense, curiosity is fundamental to caring.
That link between care and curiosity is powerful. And you can see this generative quality, this fecundity, even in simple learning activities. The sources use the marble run example.
Ah, the marble run. A classic STEM activity. Simple materials, profound learning.
Right, just cardboard tape, marbles. Design a track to get the marble from top to bottom using gravity.
And the magic happens, the STEM magic, because it's open-ended. The child isn't just assembling a pre-designed kit, they're experimenting.
And when the marble inevitably gets stuck,
Boom. Curiosity is instantly triggered. Why did it stop there? What went wrong? Then they have to hypothesize maybe the angle is wrong, maybe this support isn't strong enough, and then test their ideas.
you mentioned the open-ended materials are key. Why is that so much better than, say, a kit with specific instructions?
Well, a rigid kit kind of short-circuits the process. It tells you the answers. With open-ended materials, the child has to figure it out. They're forced to integrate all those STEM pillars naturally.
Science, like gravity and friction.
Technology, using tools like scissors and tape, effectively.
Engineering, designing the structure.
Math, thinking about angles, lengths, speed. It all comes together in this self-directed cycle of inquiry, failure, and discovery.
All sparked by that initial curiosity about making the marble move.
Right.
It shows how one question naturally leads to complex learning through play.
Exactly. It's tangible proof that inquiry just naturally compounds on itself.
Okay, so if curiosity is this powerful, this natural, this beneficial, why do so many of us seem to lose it, or at least let it fade as adults? Especially in, high-stakes professional environments.
Yeah, it's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
The answer seems to consistently point back to the influence of that fixed mindset we talked about and the cognitive shortcuts, the biases that we develop or rely on, often just to reduce mental effort.
Shortcuts, like what?
Well, a major one the sources identify as a risk to innovation is insufficient exploration. We stop looking too soon. And this is often halted by specific cognitive biases.
Which bias is particularly relevant here?
The sources really highlight the availability bias.
Okay, remind me what that is.
It's our tendency to rely heavily on information that's easily recalled, immediately available in our minds, or maybe widely believed in our circle, rather than putting in the effort to find better, newer, or more relevant information.
So we grab the first thing that comes to mind.
Pretty much. The classic example is the old belief that the Earth was flat. It looks flat from our perspective that information is immediately available through our senses. Challenging that required significant effort and abstract thinking.
Right. And how does that play out in, say, a modern workplace? How does availability bias stifle innovation there?
Constantly. It's the team leader who defaults to the strategy that worked last year, even if the market conditions have totally changed. Because that strategy is familiar, it's available in their memory.
Or the company sticking with ancient software because we all know how to use it.
Exactly. That's how we've always done it. The knowledge of the old system is readily available, easy to access, even if a vastly superior solution exists. It favors the path of least cognitive resistance, which is often not the path of innovation.
And the fixed mindset just pours fuel on that fire, right? If you believe failure means you're not talented.
You're definitely going to stick with the safe, easy, available option. You become, as the sources term it, a non-learner.
That's a harsh term, non-learner.
It is, but it captures the tragic consequence. People operating from a fixed mindset will literally sacrifice long-term growth, even career advancement, just to avoid the short-term risk of looking foolish or incompetent. Comfort trumps challenge every time.
Okay, so the fixed mindset is the problem, the fear. What's the fix? How do we actively fight against that? The sources mentioned adopting a beginner's mind.
Yes, the beginner's mind. It's essentially about practicing intellectual humility.
Humility.
It means making a conscious choice to prioritize learning over ego, over the need to always appear smart or have all the answers. It demands the willingness to say, openly and honestly, I don't know.
Which can be really hard.
Especially for experienced professionals, for leaders. There's often an expectation, internal or external, that they should know. Admitting ignorance feels vulnerable.
So how do we get past that internal pressure to seem infallible?
By reframing expertise. True expertise isn't about knowing everything already. It's about being an expert learner. You replace the need to possess all knowledge with a curiosity to acquire new knowledge. And the sources emphasize this, requires deliberate, systemic strategies. The first one, and it's incredibly powerful, is about how we give feedback. It's called process praise.
Process praise. This comes from Carol Dweck's research, right? That famous study with the fifth graders.
That's the one, a landmark study. Over 400 fifth graders took a simple nonverbal IQ test. Afterwards, they got feedback, but crucially, they were split into two groups.
Okay.
One group got ability praise. They were told something like, wow, good job. You must be really smart at this.
Praising the innate quality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other group got process praise. They were told, wow, good job. You must have worked really hard and used some good strategies.
Praising the effort, the method.
Right. And the impact on their subsequent choices was stunning.
What happened?
When they were offered a choice for their next task, the kids praised for being smart. The ability praised group overwhelmingly rejected the chance to try a harder test, even though they were told they'd learn a lot from it. They chose the easier test instead. Why? To protect their smart label.
Yeah.
They didn't want to risk doing poorly and having that label questioned. They actively avoided a challenge that could lead to learning.
Wow. They literally sacrificed growth to maintain that fixed identity.
Precisely. Whereas the kids praised for their effort and strategies, they loved the challenge. They overwhelmingly chose the harder, learning-oriented tasks.
And their performance.
They consistently improved over time. The effort-praised kids showed more resilience, more engagement, and ultimately better results. It's core proof. Focusing praise on the process, the hard work, the strategies, the choices, the persistence, that's what actually fuels ability and turns it into real sustainable accomplishment.
That is such practical advice.
Yeah.
For managers, parents, teachers, even for how we talk to ourselves.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental shift.
Okay, so process praise is strategy one. What else did the sources suggest for daily cultivation?
Strategy two is mindful noticing. This is about intentionally pulling ourselves off autopilot.
Autopilot mode, we all live there a lot of the time.
Way too much. Mindful noticing means practicing deliberate, non-judgmental attention to the details of your immediate experience. Both what's happening around you, your external surroundings, and what's happening inside you.
So not just rushing through the commute, but actually noticing the light, the sounds, the feel of the air.
Exactly. And also noticing your own thoughts as they arise, your emotions, physical sensations in your body, but observing them without immediately judging them or getting swept away by them.
What's the benefit of doing that?
It breaks that habitual reactive pattern. It grounds you in the present moment. By cultivating this kind of awareness, we stop letting old habits or anxieties automatically drive our behavior. It creates mental space, clarity, And that space is where new insights, new questions can actually emerge.
Okay, makes sense. What's the third strategy?
The third focuses on critical thinking,
Yeah.
reflective questioning, and reverse engineering.
Reflective questioning sounds like turning the lens inward.
It is. It's about systematically, almost like a friendly adversary,
Yeah.
challenging your own deeply held beliefs by asking tough questions about them. Where did this belief come from? What's the actual evidence supporting it? What are its real implications? The sources use the example of really digging into the reasons behind a choice, like vegetarianism, exploring the ethical, environmental, health arguments thoroughly.
So it's not necessarily about changing your mind.
Not necessarily. It's about ensuring your beliefs are robust, well-supported, and truly meaningful to you, rather than just things you've passively absorbed. It strengthens your intellectual foundations.
Okay. And how does reverse engineering fit in?
Reverse engineering applies that questioning process to external problems or successes. Instead of starting at the beginning and trying to figure things out, you start with a known outcome, maybe a successful product, a competitor strategy, a project that went really well, and you work backward.
Deconstructing it.
Exactly, step by step. What decisions were made, what resources were needed, what were the key turning points. It's incredibly useful for understanding complex systems or processes because it strips away assumptions and reveals the actual causal chain.
Like taking apart a clock to see how it works.
Precisely.
Okay, and the final strategy. This one sounds like it gets right to the heart of the fixed mindset fear, embracing discomfort.
Yeah, this one's crucial. We have to be honest with ourselves. A lot of what we label as procrastination or feeling stuck or avoiding a task, it's often just an aversion to discomfort.
The discomfort of uncertainty, or effort, or potential failure.
All of the above. The growth mindset demands a fundamental shift here. We need to consciously replace that habitual seeking of ease and comfort with an acceptance, even a welcoming of challenge, struggle, and yes, even criticism.
So facing that inner voice, the fixed mindset voice that screams, danger, you might fail, you look stupid.
Exactly. You have to recognize that voice. The sources are quite direct. If failure causes you intense emotional pain, if you feel defined by it, that's the fixed mindset talking.
And the transformation.
It means letting go of that need for a fixed, comfortable, predictable self. It means embracing the sometimes threatening feelings that come with challenge, because you value the learning that lies on the other side more than you value the temporary comfort of staying put. It's about becoming, as the sources say, a more alive, courageous, and open person.
That's a profound shift. Moving from the individual level now to the broader context. Curiosity isn't just personal development, right? The sources position it as the engine for innovation, particularly in organizations.
Absolutely. It's central.
So what happens when organizations fail to embrace curiosity, when they operate collectively with a fixed mindset?
The consequences can be severe. Stagnation, lack of adaptability, eventually becoming irrelevant. The sources describe a common pattern with fixed mindset leaders. They often create what's called the genius with 1,000 helpers model.
Genius with 1,000 helpers. That sounds problematic.
It's incredibly hierarchical and brittle because it centers everything on the leader's ego, their need to be seen as the genius.
How does that play out?
These leaders tend to prioritize their personal reputation, their image of greatness, often above the long-term health of the company. They actively discourage dissent, they might stifle talented rivals, and they create environments where information only flows downwards.
So no challenging questions going up the chain.
Definitely not. The world, for them, is divided into superiors themselves and inferiors, everyone else. Their main goal becomes constantly proving and reaffirming their own perceived superiority.
What's that like for the employees, the 1,000 helpers?
It's an environment ruled by fear, mostly. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of speaking up. Employees learn quickly to hide bad news, to avoid proposing risky but potentially innovative ideas, and basically to disengage from any real exploratory thinking.
So the organization is systematically cutting itself off from new ideas and critical feedback.
Exactly. It's starving itself of the diverse input and the challenging questions it desperately needs to adapt and survive.
Okay, contrast that nightmare scenario with a growth-minded manager or leader.
The difference is night and day. The growth-minded leader acts as a guide, a resource, a coach, not a judge. Their focus is on developing their people.
Providing coaching, creating safety.
Yes, psychological safety is key. And critically, they genuinely welcome feedback and critiques, even from junior employees. Why? Because they see criticism not as a personal attack, but as valuable data for improvement. for themselves, for the team, for the organization.
And this ties back directly to that principle we discussed earlier. You can't be judgmental and curious at the same time.
That is the absolute crux of it at the organizational level. Leaders who default to criticism or blame instantly shut down curiosity. They create defensiveness, not exploration.
Right.
Curiosity requires an open, receptive, non-judgmental stance. When that genuinely curious mood is set by leadership, when it becomes the cultural foundation, then you get psychological safety. And then creative ideas, even seemingly wild ones, can flow freely because the fear of failure is reframed as a necessary part of the learning process.
And there's another benefit mentioned, less toxic behavior.
Yes. Growth mindset companies tend to have less cutthroat behavior, less cheating, less information hoarding, because the ultimate prize isn't being crowned the natural superstar. The focus is on collective learning, resilience, and improvement.
Makes sense. Now, to fuel that collective innovation, the sources stress that curiosity can't just stay within your own little silo, your own field of expertise.
Oh, absolutely not. Diversifying your information sources is critical. Staying buried only in your industry journals or internal company reports, that just creates an echo chamber.
Reinforces existing biases.
Exactly. The real competitive edge, the spark for true breakthroughs, often comes from broadening your inputs, from deliberate exploration outside your comfort zone.
So things like
Using public libraries, subscribing to online courses from different fields, watching webinars on unrelated topics, actively seeking out TED Talks by experts in completely different domains. Depth in your field is vital, yes, but breadth of input is what fuels the cross-pollination of ideas.
And the sources gave an example related to complex issues like climate change.
Right. If you only look at climate change through the lens of climate science, your understanding, while deep, is incomplete.
You miss other dimensions.
Exactly. You gain a much richer, more nuanced, and ultimately more actionable perspective when you integrate the scientific evidence with, say, economic impacts, geopolitical realities, engineering challenges, social justice concerns.
So seeking diverse viewpoints helps you see the whole system, not just one part.
It prevents simplistic binary thinking and allows for more holistic, effective strategies.
And this idea of diversity extends beyond just information into actual cultural experience too, right? There's research on studying abroad.
Yes, quite compelling research. It shows a significant positive correlation between deep multicultural experiences, like immersive study abroad programs, and enhanced creative thinking abilities.
Both general creativity and culture-specific creativity.
Both. Students who've had these immersive experiences consistently outperform their peers on various measures of creativity and cognitive flexibility.
Why? What's the mechanism there? What does being immersed in another culture actually do to the brain?
The key seems to be cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
When your familiar cultural scripts, your assumptions about how things work, suddenly don't apply anymore. Or worse, they actively conflict with the norms of the foreign environment. That creates a kind of mental friction.
A discomfort.
A productive discomfort. That conflict forces your brain to adapt. You have to make complex cognitive and behavioral adjustments just to function effectively.
You have to figure out new ways of thinking and acting.
Exactly. And that struggle, that process of adaptation, enhances your overall cognitive flexibility. It trains your brain to recognize, generate, and synthesize information, even seemingly unrelated cultural information, in novel ways. Which is, at its heart, the essence of creativity, learning to bridge different worlds.
Okay, so we've explored the spark, the mechanism, the mindset hacks, the organizational impact. The final piece is sustainability. How do we keep this curious flame burning over the long haul? How do we avoid drifting back into complacency?
It requires ongoing, conscious effort. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that core growth mindset principle. Continuous effort is what actually builds talent. It's what ignites potential and turns it into real accomplishment.
Getting past the natural talent myth.
Absolutely. We love to mythologize people as naturals. But the sources point out even someone like Michael Jordan, hailed as the epitome of natural talent. He was famously the hardest working athlete in the game.
His work ethic was legendary.
His willingness to embrace failure, to analyze every mistake, to relentlessly practice, that was arguably more crucial to his sustained greatness than just his innate physical gifts. Effort compounded his talent.
So the lesson is hard work isn't just something you do until you make it. It's what keeps you growing.
Precisely. And the encouraging part is that mindsets, while powerful, are just beliefs. And beliefs can be changed. Simply becoming aware of the two mindsets, fixed versus growth, is the first step.
You start to catch yourself.
Exactly. You start to notice when you feel that sting of being labeled by a setback, or when your first instinct is to reject a challenge because it feels threatening. That awareness gives you a choice point. You can recognize the fixed mindset reaction and consciously choose to shift into a growth mindset perspective instead.
And that shift is vital because the whole process of inquiry, of innovation, is inherently messy, isn't it? It involves trial and error.
Absolutely. Failure is part of the process. Think of Thomas Edison and the light bulb.
Thousands of attempts, right?
Thousands. Were those failures?
Mm.
Or were they thousands of necessary learning steps, each one providing data about what didn't work, bringing him closer to what would?
Depends on the mindset you bring to it.
Completely. Faced with a setback, the fixed mindset says, see, I failed. I'm not good enough. It leads to quitting. The growth mindset asks, okay, that didn't work. What can I learn from this? How can I use this information to improve my next attempt? It leads to resilience and eventual success.
And the environment we put ourselves in, the people we surround ourselves with, that plays a big role in sustaining this too.
Huge role. We need to be intentional about it. Our environment can either drag us back towards fixed thinking or propel us forward in our growth.
So seek out environments and people that foster development.
Yes. The sources suggest choosing mentors and colleagues who challenge you, who push you to develop, rather than those who just offer constant, uncritical adoration. That kind of praise can actually feed the fixed mindset's need for validation, paradoxically hindering growth.
That reminds me of the final example from the sources.
Yeah.
The violin teacher, Dorothy DeLay.
Oh, she's a perfect embodiment of this, a legendary teacher.
Yeah.
Her core belief was that talent wasn't some mystical, innate gift. It was a quality that could be actively acquired, systematically developed, through focused effort and the right guidance.
So she didn't pick winners.
Not at all. Because of that fundamental belief, she poured her absolute best teaching, her full energy and insight, into every single student who walked through her door, regardless of their initial perceived promise or talent level.
Wow.
She saw her role as igniting the potential within each person, helping them push past their own mental barriers, often those very fixed mindset beliefs, like feeling intimidated by a perceived superstar classmate. She modeled that deep desire to help every mind grow.
It really sounds like this whole journey, cultivating curiosity, embracing the growth mindset, it's fundamentally about becoming more fully ourselves, isn't it?
I think so. It requires real courage. You have to be willing to let go of that comfortable, known, fixed self that maybe feels safe but is ultimately limiting.
And embrace the discomfort.
Embrace the challenge, the struggle, the possibility of criticism, the uncertainty. It can feel threatening. But when you pull together everything we've discussed, from the evolutionary roots to the cognitive strategies to the organizational culture, the payoff is immense.
What's the ultimate result?
You become, as the sources suggest, a more resilient, more creative, more engaged, ultimately a more alive and open person. Curiosity, fueled by a growth mindset, is that active desire for knowledge that generates the sustained effort and resilience you absolutely need for deep, meaningful innovation.
It's been a really rich deep dive, and the sources leave us with one final important point of nuance, little caveat almost.
Yeah.
While curiosity is generally hugely beneficial for a well-lived life, it's not always a virtue.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not automatically good in every single instance. Curiosity can potentially be misdirected. It can be experienced at inappropriate times or in inappropriate ways.
Like becoming nosy.
Exactly. The sources use the term meddlesomeness. There's a difference between genuine inquiry driven by care or a desire to understand and just sticking your nose where it doesn't belong.
And it's also about focus, right? We can't be intensely curious about everything.
We can't. We have finite time, finite attention, finite energy.
Yeah.
So naturally and reasonably, we tend to consider some things more worthy of our deep investigation than others.
Like being curious about the exact color of every car that drives past. Probably not the best use of that powerful engine.
Right. It's inquiry, technically, but it lacks that sense of purpose or potential for growth that we associate with curiosity as a virtue.
Yeah.
There needs to be some element of value or meaning driving it.
So that leads directly to the final provocative thought for you, our listener, to ponder after this discussion. If curiosity truly is this powerful engine for innovation, for personal growth, for understanding, how do you personally define the ethical, the purposeful boundaries? What makes something truly worthy of your focused, intense investigation? Where do you choose to direct that incredible power?